Humans have been on this planet for about 300,000 years. For most of that time, we lived in small groups. We hunted animals. We followed the seasons. We slept wherever we could find shelter. And then, in what is genuinely the blink of an eye on the scale of history, everything changed. We went from caves to cities. From hunting with sticks to sending robots to Mars. From drawings on stone walls to carrying the entire knowledge of humanity in our pockets. How? 10 moments. That's the honest answer. 10 breakthroughs, spread across hundreds of thousands of years, that each changed the direction of everything that came after them. Today we're going through all 10. In order. And by the end, I think you'll see something that connects all of them, something that says a lot about what humans actually are. Let's start at the very beginning. Milestone 1: Fire. About 1 million years ago, maybe a little more, one of our ancestors did something that had never been done before. They controlled fire. Now, fire had existed on Earth for hundreds of millions of years. Lightning started fires. Volcanoes started fires. But controlling fire, keeping it alive, moving it, using it on purpose, that was something new. What did it change? Almost everything. Cooking food meant the calories and proteins in meat and plants became much more accessible to the human body. More nutrition meant more energy for the brain. Scientists believe the dramatic growth of the human brain over the past million years is directly linked to cooked food. Warmth meant humans could survive in colder climates and spread across the planet. Protection from predators meant safer sleep and camps. And perhaps most importantly, fire meant gathering. People sat together around the flame. They talked. They told stories. They planned. The campfire may be the first social technology humans ever invented. Every other milestone on this list is downstream of that first fire. Milestone 2: Agriculture. Around 10,000 BC, roughly 12,000 years ago, something happened in multiple places around the world, almost simultaneously. Humans figured out farming. Not all at once. Not on purpose at first. But slowly, people noticed that seeds dropped near campsites grew into plants. That certain grasses produced more grain than others. That animals could be kept rather than chased. And the consequences of that realization were enormous. For the first time in history, people could produce more food than they needed right now. Surplus food meant that not everyone had to spend every day finding food. Some people could specialize in building, in trading, in governing, in thinking. Villages appeared. Then towns. Then cities. The first civilizations, in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, all grew directly from the agricultural surplus that made permanent settlement possible. Farming didn't just feed humanity. It created civilization itself. Milestone 3: The wheel and writing. Two inventions roughly 300 years apart, that together created the infrastructure of every civilization that followed. The wheel appeared around 3500 BC, first as a potter's wheel for shaping clay, then as transport. The effect on trade was immediate and dramatic. Goods that had previously been carried by hand or on animals could now move in far larger quantities, over far greater distances. The wheel connected communities that had been effectively isolated from each other. And then, around 3200 BC, came writing. Before writing, all human knowledge lived only in human memory. When a person died, everything they knew died with them. Writing changed that permanently. Knowledge could be stored. It could accumulate across generations. It could travel across distances. It could be checked, corrected, built upon. The first writing we know of, Sumerian cuneiform, was used mostly for accounting. Tracking grain, cattle, debts. Practical and unglamorous. But the implications were world-changing. For the first time, human knowledge was no longer limited by the size of a human brain. Milestone 4: The printing press. 1450. Johannes Gutenberg invents movable type printing in Mainz, Germany. Before the printing press, books were copied by hand, mostly by monks, one at a time. A single Bible could take years to produce and cost as much as a house. Knowledge lived in monasteries, universities, and palaces. It was the property of the few. Within 50 years of Gutenberg's press, an estimated 20 million books had been printed across Europe. Within a century, that number reached 200 million. Ideas that previously took generations to spread now moved in years, then months. The Protestant Reformation was fueled by the printing press. Martin Luther's 95 Theses spread across Germany in weeks in a way that would have been impossible before. The scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, democracy itself, all were accelerated directly by the sudden ability of ideas to reach millions of people. Gutenberg didn't just invent a machine. He invented the first version of mass media. And with it, the democratization of knowledge. Milestone 5, the Scientific Revolution. This one is harder to point to than the others, because it wasn't an object. It was a method. A way of thinking. In the 16th and 17th centuries, something shifted in how educated Europeans approached questions about the world. The old approach, look at what ancient authorities, Aristotle, the Bible, said about something, and accept it. The new approach, observe the world directly, form a hypothesis, test it, and accept what the evidence shows, even if it contradicts everything you believed before. Copernicus showed the Earth moves around the Sun, not the other way around. Galileo built telescopes and gathered evidence to prove it. Newton described the mathematical laws underlying all physical motion. This shift, from authority to evidence, is the single most important change in how humans think. It is the foundation of every scientific and technological development that followed. Medicine, engineering, chemistry, physics, computing, all of it rests on the principle that the world can be understood through observation and experiment. The scientific revolution didn't give us a new fact. It gave us the most powerful tool for finding facts that has ever existed. Milestone 6, the Industrial Revolution. Around 1760, in Britain, something began that would change human life more dramatically than anything since the invention of agriculture. The steam engine, the key technology of the Industrial Revolution, meant that for the first time in history, humans had access to mechanical power that wasn't limited by the muscles of people or animals. One steam engine could do the work of hundreds of workers, tirelessly, for as long as it was fueled. Factories appeared. Then railways. Then steamships. The speed at which goods, people, and information could move across the world accelerated dramatically. In 1800, the vast majority of humans worked in agriculture, as they had for 10,000 years. By 1900, that had changed fundamentally in the industrialized world. Cities grew at extraordinary speed. The nature of work, family life, class structure, politics, everything was transformed within a few generations. The Industrial Revolution also marks the point at which human activity began to significantly alter the planet's chemistry, which connects directly to conversations we're having today. For better and worse, the world we live in was built in those 100 years. Milestone 7, Electricity. Electricity had been theorized and experimented with for centuries. But it was in the late 19th century, through the work of Edison, Tesla, Faraday, and others, that it became something humans could generate, distribute, and use at scale. The effects are so woven into modern life that they're almost invisible. Electric light ended the tyranny of darkness. Before it, after sunset, life stopped. Communication became nearly instantaneous. The telegraph and then the telephone collapsed the concept of distance. But the deeper change was to the rhythm of human life. For the entire history of our species, humans had lived according to the sun. Work when it's light. Rest when it's dark. The seasons dictated what was possible. Electricity broke that relationship permanently. It also became the foundation that every subsequent technology was built on. Computers, the internet, modern medicine, modern manufacturing, none of it exists without electricity. It's the water that every other technology swims in. Milestone 8, Computers and the Internet. The first true computers appeared in the 1940s, machines the size of entire rooms, capable of performing calculations that would take human mathematicians months, in seconds. By the 1970s, the microchip had shrunk a computer to the size of a briefcase. By the 1990s, to a desk. By 2007, to a pocket. The smartphone you probably have within arm's reach right now is millions of times more powerful than the computer that guided the Apollo moon landings. And then there's the Internet. For the entire history of humanity, access to knowledge depended on where you were and who you knew. Books were expensive and scarce. Libraries existed in cities. Education was a privilege. The Internet made the entire accumulated knowledge of human civilization, every book, every study, every piece of music, every film, every conversation, available to anyone with a connection, almost instantly, almost for free. That is genuinely one of the most extraordinary things that has ever happened. We're so accustomed to it that we forget how radical it is. Milestone 9: Medicine and Vaccines. This is the quiet milestone. The one that doesn't get the credit it deserves, because its victories are invisible. They're the deaths that didn't happen. In 1800, the average human life expectancy was around 35 years. Not because people aged faster, but because so many children died before reaching adulthood. Smallpox, cholera, typhoid, tuberculosis, plague, these diseases killed routinely, indiscriminately, and in enormous numbers. Vaccines changed that. The smallpox vaccine, the first true vaccine, was developed by Edward Jenner in 1796. Smallpox is now the only disease in history to have been completely eradicated by human effort. Gone. Extinct. Penicillin, discovered accidentally by Alexander Fleming in 1928, gave doctors a weapon against bacterial infections that had previously been death sentences. Surgical techniques, anesthesia, antiseptics. The 20th century saw medicine transform from largely ineffective ritual into genuine science. The result, global average life expectancy is now 73 years. Billions of people alive today would have died in childhood in any previous century. That number, the lives silently saved, is perhaps the greatest achievement in human history. Milestone 10: Artificial Intelligence. And now we arrive at the present. The milestones still being written. Artificial intelligence is not new, the term was coined in 1956. But what's happened in the last few years is different in scale and kind from anything before it. Large language models can now write, reason, code, translate, and create at a level that, just 5 years ago, most experts thought was decades away. Here's what makes AI different from every other milestone on this list. Fire extended what our bodies could do physically. The wheel extended how far we could move. The printing press extended how far our words could reach. Electricity powered our machines. The Internet expanded our access to information. AI is the first technology that extends what our minds can do. It doesn't just carry our thoughts faster or further, it begins to replicate the act of thinking itself. In medicine, AI is already diagnosing cancers earlier than human doctors. In science, it's predicting protein structures that took researchers decades to figure out. In law, in education, in creative work, it's changing what is possible and what is expected. Whether this leads to something better than what we have, or something more complicated, or something we can't yet predict, that question is genuinely open. Which is exactly where every other milestone on this list started. 10 milestones. 1,000,000 years of progress. But look at them together, and something becomes clear. None of these happened because someone was trying to change the world. Fire was discovered by someone who was cold. Agriculture was discovered by someone who was hungry. The printing press was built by someone who wanted to print Bibles more efficiently. Penicillin was discovered because someone forgot to clean their petri dish. Every single milestone on this list came from curiosity. From the human instinct to look at a problem and ask, is there a better way? And every milestone created new problems that future milestones had to solve. Agriculture created the need for writing. The printing press created the need for a scientific method to sort good information from bad. The Industrial Revolution created problems we're still working on today. AI will create problems we can't yet see. That's not a pessimistic observation. That's the pattern. Each solution creates the next question. And humans, apparently, are very good at questions. So, what's the 11th milestone? What comes after AI? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe. See you in the next one.